Good morning. We'll do more formal introductions when we get going, but welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's 8:30. Have we begun the live stream?
Live stream has begun.
Okay, do we have a quorum, Tina? Or Monique?
Yes, you do.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, there's Jim, Brad. The squares just keep moving, and it's who's arriving and where are they?
Okay, so I think the important consideration is that we have established that we have a quorum. So I would like to call the meeting to order. And with your indulgence, before we formally get into the agenda, I just want to welcome Paul Raftis and congratulate him on his appointment as a Deputy City Manager of Community and Social Services at the city. Many of you probably would have had some interaction with Paul or know of him. He has been a friend and a supporter of the work that we do, and we look forward to having him on the board and look forward to his support as we try to navigate some of the complexities with the challenges we have at City Hall, and also to help us grow the portfolio to continue to serve our seniors in the best possible way. So Paul, once again, welcome to the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation Board. We look forward to having you with us.
Thank you very much, Fareed. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and really looking forward to supporting the board and all of you and looking forward to working together and helping to move things forward in a very positive way in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to the formal agenda. Before I get into the agenda proper, I just want to do the land and ancestral acknowledgement. I begin with the land acknowledgement. We honor the land we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nations. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements, and it is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. The board also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. These treaties and other agreements include the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers who are invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are mindful of broken covenants, and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We would like also to acknowledge those who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, we pay honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda circulated? Okay, hearing none, we'll take it that the agenda is approved as circulated, but before we...
I believe Brenda has a question.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, Brenda, I can't see the screen. I've got
Yeah, I know. I'm having problems too.
Go ahead.
In our agenda, in the closed meeting, I'd like to speak.
Okay.
I'm just trying to look at my agenda here, where the appropriate time would be. But I'd like to speak. So, in reference to our committees and board meetings.
Okay, thanks, Brenda. With that change, I assume there are no concerns or objections to that, so we will proceed with the agenda as amended. Before we get going this morning, as many of you know, we are commemorating and celebrating Black History Month. And I thought it would be helpful for us as a team to have one of our staff at the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation reflect on this special month and what that perhaps means to her or the corporation that she works with, and perhaps provide us with some food for thought as we commence our meeting this morning. So Michelle is with us. I want to thank Michelle Davis for agreeing to do this. Michelle is currently the manager of seniors housing in the Northwest region within the Toronto Seniors Housing Operations team. She has over 22 years of combined work experience, both with TCHC and TSHC. She has a master's degree in public administration from Queen's University. She also has a background in social work, community development, community safety protection, property management, and she has also worked in Canada and the US. So it looks like Michelle has worked everywhere and almost on everything. So Michelle, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Farid. Please allow me to extend greetings to the exceptional leaders who serve on our board, the staff of the executive leadership team, the staff who provide support to the board and its committee, Mr. CEO, and the members of the public who have joined us today to listen. Today's conversation with you all is an honor. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my perspectives on Black History Month. As someone who works within the ISM and the accountability framework and has followed its progress and the achievements of this young organization with great interest, I appreciate you taking the time to hear what I have to say. Let me start by asking you a question. What does Black history mean to you? Now, as you reflect, for me, Black History Month is not just a time to celebrate the achievements of Black Canadians, but also an opportunity to reflect on the struggles and obstacles that Black people have faced and continue to face. Each year in February, Canadians celebrate the achievements of Black Canadians from the past through to the present. With a wide range of racial and ethnic identities among Black Canadians, we also honor the lives and contributions of Black people of African and Caribbean descent who have gone on before us and are still with us in the form of elders and leaders. This time serves as a reminder for the journey we've already taken, the amount of hard work that lies ahead, the destination we must reach. It is also an excellent opportunity to learn about the celebrate these communities' rich histories and varied traditions. I'm hoping you can hear me fine.
Yes, thanks, Michelle.
Okay, sorry. Okay, everyone, whether Black Nova Scotians, Caribbean Canadians, Black immigrants from other parts of the world, refugees from Eastern African countries, or first-generation Canadians have a narrative, and I am an amplification of those voices. Given that anti-Black racism still exists and contributes to some of the worst outcomes for Black communities across the country, we must work together to build stronger, safer, healthy neighborhoods that benefit everyone. As many experiences differ, Black History Month also sheds light on the complexity of what it means to be Black, not just in Canada, but also internationally, and how this ultimately links to a broader understanding of what Blackness looks like worldwide. The history of Black people, although we know that race is a social construct, offers me a chance for profound self-reflection as I lead daily with humility and gratitude, understanding the significance of the opportunities which have been afforded to me, that those who came preceding me did not have, simply due to the color of their skin. The fact that I can use my position to encourage and inspire people within the Black community and beyond practice anti-Black and anti-oppression, equity, diversity, indigeneity, and inclusive practices called DII daily, while serving as a positive role model, humbles me. I have been with, as you heard, Toronto Community Housing and now Toronto Seniors Housing for 22 years. And I pride myself on being unapologetically Black. And I'm always open to sharing the magic that comes from being who I am. Black history is every day for me. I live it. But it is comforting to know that I work in a place that continues to make efforts towards inclusion for both tenants and staff. I work in a company that continues to learn how to become EDII aware strategically and sees the need for institutional change and change at all levels, right down to the frontline services we provide. Question for you to ponder. How long do biases remain unconscious? At some point, we need to call it willful ignorance. Today is more acknowledgement that 1 month is not enough. We have a rich history that can be shared throughout the year. I am grateful to serve the community of senior tenants, colleagues, and our various community partners. It is a privilege to serve, and I hope to inspire others from marginalized and underrepresented groups through my contributions to TSHC. As I close, sharing my thoughts with such an esteemed group has been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, attention, and ongoing support, and I look forward to the next time we have the opportunity to connect. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may just comment.
Rita,
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
well, I can hear you, Brenda. I don't. I think maybe Fareed must be having some technical
Okay.
challenges there. So let's. Do you want to proceed
Yes.
with comments, and
Yeah.
then we'll let Fareed
Sure. Okay, just
get things
briefly,
worked out.
thank you, Michelle, for your comments. I just want to add a little personal reflection. My background is Black Nova Scotian. And as such, I tell people I'm often the most Canadian and long-lived group in any room. And that's, of course, contrary to the notion that Blacks are always perceived as the other, the outsider, the immigrant, the newcomer. We've been here. We helped settle this country. And I have personal reflection because I have deep family involvement in human rights and civil rights activities, including an uncle who went to Ottawa to ensure that immigration laws are changed so that most of you folks here in your family would not have been able to come here had it not been for the efforts of the Black community in various parts of Canada who took a train to meet Louis Saint Laurent to suggest removing the race categories and race quotas. That was a feature of our immigration law until 1968 when the previous Prime Minister Trudeau changed the immigration system to a more fair point system. So like Michelle, Black History Month is every month for me. And I just like people to reflect on the origins and the real history of our country, which is often ignored or not understood or willfully blinded. I would agree with your comment. And I want to add that as well to the willful blindness in our Aboriginal First Nations communities. Blacks and Native people often live side by side in this country. You know, the dejected, rejected folks were put over on the bad land, the rocky land, the non-arable land, and you know, generational poverty can be linked in many ways to those original actions.
Okay.
So that's all I just wanted to comment, and thank you and the organization for making the efforts and bringing forth these ideas for us to consider. Thank
you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. Those were great words indeed, and thanks, and we do appreciate the journey you've been on, and Michelle, thanks for those reflection as well. I mean, I think, as both of you said, Black History Month, this is a month that helps us to recognize and shine a spotlight on Black history, but I think this should permeate every month and every day. We should reflect on the challenges and opportunities that both Black people as well as the Indigenous community have had to endure along the way. So thank you very much. All right, so we'll proceed to the approval of the agenda. I want to recognize, I think I saw Councillor Crisanti join us. So, Councillor, welcome. In terms of the
Thank you very much. I just unmuted. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So I'm going to go to item number 4, which is approval of the public meeting agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, may I have a motion, be it resolved that the public meeting agenda as presented to the board is approved?
So approved, Mr. Chair. It's Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. And Councillor Crisanti has seconded, moved by Carrie. All right, so we'll move to item number 5. Are there any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I just want to remind members, if one were to arise during our deliberations, please identify it. Item number 6, the minutes have been circulated. Are there any amendments, additions, deletions to the minutes? These are the minutes of November the 29th, the public minutes initially, November the 29th and December the 12th. Hearing none, may I have a motion to the effect, be it resolved that the public meeting minutes of November the 29th, 2022 and December the 12th, 2022 in the form presented to the board be approved?
Moved, Linda Jackson.
Thanks, Linda. Seconder. Okay, Jim Meeks. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7. This is the approval of the minutes of the closed meetings held on November 29th and December the 12th. May I have a motion again to approve the closed session meeting minutes of November the 29th, 2022 and December the 12th, 2022 in the form presented to the board?
Moved, Linda.
Thanks,
Seconded,
Linda.
Carrie.
Seconded by Carrie. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, item number 8. Are there any matters arising from the minutes or any action items? Right, if not, we'll move on to Mr. Hunter. Floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, everyone, and through the chair to the board. Just as I do at the meetings, providing a short verbal update, and I would like to highlight those items that we aren't going to be discussing in detail at today's meeting. So just to keep the board aware of some of our key activities outside of the more formal presentations today. But did first want to mention the work on the interim strategic directions and our KPIs. That work has been going very well, and it will be the draft. A draft will be going to the QTE in March 9th, and then to the board in April. And there was broader consultation than what we had originally planned, which I think we received some excellent feedback, particularly with staff and some of our partners. And then I think importantly with this interim strategic directions, you'll see a roadmap and subsequently the KPIs, the key performance indicators, which are associated with that. Also, secondly, want to remind the board of our upcoming governance session on March the 10th, where we're going to be reviewing our proposed government work plan for 2023, and then, of course, seek further have discussion and input from the board. And also in preparation for the next round of committee meetings, and then for just sharing that putting together a more extensive report and information on our partnerships, and providing the board with more kind of information, quantitative information on what's happening, qualitative around our partnerships, an emerging significant partnership with Acrest and the North Ontario Health Team. So excited to share some of that work with our board. and also what we see as our value proposition as an organization as we look to build and extend those partnerships. Also, a great deal of work has been done on our annual report, and that will be coming through the committee and board in March and April. And from the draft of the annual report, really pleased to see that this is going to be a document that I think, even from a kind of an orientation and an overview of Toronto seniors, will be very helpful for our organization and certainly for those who we share it with. So looking forward to presenting our annual report to the board. And the listening tour continues. The schedule should have me done by the end of April. So Lawrence, I got them all in within a year. So I hit that mark. But what I'm turning kind of the attention to now is beyond the year and getting to all the homes. And my thinking at this point will be to schedule one a week, so that I still kind of remain connected and in the building. So stay tuned as we kind of continue that work as well. And this is the time of year we're just finalizing our reporting to the city manager, to the city manager, the service manager, sorry, as part of our agreement and what we need to provide to them from a reporting perspective and metrics and indicators. So once again in March and April, just confirming more of that with the board. I don't think there'll be kind of any surprises in terms of this relates to what we're seeing around our vacancy arrears, which we've been reporting to the board on an ongoing basis, but it's just a kind of formal point by the end of April that we finalize that information. We're also from around the engagement. You'll hear more about the work with the consultant around the tenant engagement system, but our work certainly with STAC has continued with meetings. We're actually meeting with the group this afternoon, and some focused work around indicators and outcomes of what we're trying to achieve. So that's really, I think, very good for us to focus and continue on that work. And just finally, as around our information technology and security, and really this is being driven by Toronto Community Housing Corporation, but as part of their strategy and work to improve security, they're with the board in particular, they're going to be taking kind of a two-step approach. So for those board members who currently have a Toronto Seniors Housing email address account, Roman, our IT expert, will be working with the five of you around multi-factorial authentication. It sounds bigger than it is. All the staff now have it, but we'll, as an initial step for those board members who have the Toronto Seniors Housing email, they will get the MFA. And then as the longer term strategy is for all board members, you would have an iPad with a portal where you would receive all of your board information. So that is down the road, but really just continuing to focus and improve the security for the corporation, and just wanted to kind of update the board on the work that's being done specifically for this group. So that is my update for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Lots going on. Are there any questions? Okay, Brenda, go ahead, please. Can't hear you, Brenda.
Sorry. Where are we on the timing or the scheduling of finalizing of our service contractual agreements with Toronto Community Housing? All that relationship stuff that we've been working on.
Yes, through the chair to Brenda, we are. I'll provide. I'm going to be providing an update on that work to the board today in our in-camera session.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Brenda. Anyone else? All right. So thank you, Tom. The last thing we need is another electronic device, but I look forward to getting the iPad. All right, but I understand for security reasons now it makes absolute sense. I was just kidding. Okay, so we'll move to the next item, and this is item number 10, the Quality and Tenant Engagement Report, and I'll hand it over to Linda.
Great, thanks everybody, and nice to see you. So I'm just going to give a brief summary of our last meeting, and then actually the substantive agenda items are actually will follow. So it seems like a long time ago, and it has been that our committee has met. We met on December 19th. And it was a very, again, substantive meeting. There was an update on the listening tour, and since then, Tom has progressed. And congratulations to Tom in terms of that tenant engagement and actually seeing all of the properties. I think is really important. The latest operational dashboard was presented, which included progress on key items such as vacancies and vacancy rate, and we're seeing some good progress on that. Arrears, maintenance, work orders, pest management, safety, and security. And this is again on our agenda today, and we will go into to more detail. And there was an update on the 3 quality improvement projects, for which at that time 2 had started, and the third on staff and tenant relations was just about to start. And again, there will be an update on this agenda item, so I won't go into great detail. There was an update on the status and the development of the tenant engagement model, with a little bit of a challenge initially getting an RFP out for that work, but I understand that has subsequently moved ahead, and we will get an update on that shortly. The city brought the first version of the integrated service model, and I'm sure that we'll have lots of discussion about that today. And I know that there's 2 deputations, so we will hear from them as well in terms of the substantive work that has been underway since really we came together as a corporation. Actually, I think it predates us, this ISM work. So looking forward to getting the board's input, and we really appreciate our city partners being here again with us to present on that. And finally, the committee reviewed the work plan. I know all of the committees are doing that, and with our plans going forward for this year. So that's kind of the high level of what we were looking at in December. Fareed, over to you in terms of managing the 3 items under here, and our deputations I think are on the ISM.
Yeah, thanks, Linda, and thanks for your continued stewardship of that committee. So we'll move to the operational performance dashboard. Brad?
Thanks, Fareed. I'm not sure if we can get it put up on the screen. While we're trying to do that, the operational dashboard, as Linda said, provides an overview of the key performance indicators that staff operate to. Thanks. Next slide. So on the first page here, we see the arrears, maintenance service levels, administrative request, and vacancy numbers. And as Linda spoke about, the vacancy numbers continue to drop. Currently today, they're at 2.04. We're 0.04% off of our target with the City of Toronto, which we're not supposed to be meeting for the next 3 months. So we're in the process of renegotiating that target with the city. Next slide, please. When it comes to the arrears, give a detailed breakdown. The arrears have remained relatively flat. We actually had a decrease in the arrears prior to Christmas, and then as we see with arrears cyclically, they've since increased. The important thing here is that we're getting our tenants into the arrears collection process and preserving those tenancies as fast as we can. One of the details here shows that the average unmanaged arrears file is currently at $342, and when you take into account the tenants, their average rent paid is just over $500. It means that we're getting tenants and we're getting early intervention, which we know is key to preserving tenancies. Next slide, please. So at the end of October, in the bottom right, you can see that our goal was 3.79. Our actual vacancy rate was 2.52%. As I said, we're now at 2.04%. And we've met with the city about renegotiating those targets, and the city is very pleased with our progress on this item. Next slide, please. Maintenance and work orders. There's been a spike in the number of work orders that you see that we've been creating. This is a result of, for the first time since COVID began, we have been able to inspect all of our units and complete our annual unit inspection. This generated approximately 9,000 requests for action from staff, 2,500 of them relating to administrative requests and the balance remaining with work orders. Of those 9,000, there's currently 3,200 that remain outstanding today as staff continue to work their way down. And I'm pleased to say that staff have exceeded 90% as far as their work order completion rate within 2 business days. Next slide. Pest control. We continue to see pest control data and numbers fluctuate. There's been some great work through the Pest Control Quality Improvement Project. We've had a couple of pilot projects so far that we've seen some incredible success at. We've taken a building where we were averaging 30 units treated per month during the summer, and we've reduced that to 4 units per month now. And we're just trying to find how we're able to scale that across all 83 of the communities. And we're using data in order to most effectively allocate our resources out. Next slide. As I said earlier, the annual unit inspection process was complete, hence the spike. It was begun in September and proceeded through October and November, and staff are now dealing with the backlog of requests and assisting residents with regards to pension and outstanding rent reviews and other items that they're asking for assistance with. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the community safety unit and their responses to TSHC communities provided by TSHC. And again, this information has been fed through the quality improvement project and to do with safety and security. And we'll be looking at making changes, as Tom said, to the reporting dashboard and the numbers that we provide the board. And I believe that's the last one.
Okay. Thanks, Brad. Are there any questions for Brad or for Linda? Carrie?
Thank you, Fareed. Brad, just, congrats to you and your team for some really, really terrific numbers, especially the work order performance, closing within 5 business days. I mean, that's a wonderful standard, and to see that completion rate jumping is really impressive. And of course, the vacancy rate. Just one little point regarding the unmanaged arrears. That is arrears that haven't made it at all into the system. They've been identified as arrears, but there hasn't been an opportunity to take any action with them, right?
Correct. And the way our arrears collection process is structured, Linda, is that we don't actually pursue a tenant in arrears until they owe more than 1 month's rent. The reason being, a lot of seniors use their pension that they receive at the end of the month to pay that current month. So to issue them any legal notices or letters, knowing with the realization that they're going to have a 0 balance by the time they receive that letter, just seems punitive in a way.
Yeah. And that's a nice change, by the way, in the language from what had been in place beforehand when people did receive those, somewhat punitive sounding letters. So great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. Brenda. You're on mute, Brenda.
Do this. It's the double negative. I can't figure this out. Following on the arrears conversation here, is it possible, Brad, to sort of have almost like a process chart, like how are arrears handled, and a kind of an explanation of each step? So, for example, you mentioned legal filing stage. Well, legal filing of what, and the N4s. Is it possible just to get a sense of the step-by-step process of how we deal with this, and like what is the significance of the N4, for example? I'm just trying to get a sense of seriousness of each stage, the time that you allow. For example, just your recent comment about, in a sense, some people are always in arrears because they're waiting for their check to come in, right? So just as a chart to let us know what the stages are for dealing with arrears, so we get a sense of the process. because sometimes the issue is process as much as it is specific actions or specific outcomes. So that was my first comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Through the chair, Brenda, we can provide that. Maybe the best way to do that would be to provide a more detailed view of the arrears collection process at the next Quality Tenant Engagement Committee meeting, and provide a report as to how files flow through the arrears collection process.
Okay.
And the comments that you made are actually comments that we're trying to incorporate into the new dashboard that Tom was speaking of earlier, that we'll be providing to the board, that'll hopefully present the information in a more meaningful way.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate it. And even just a simple one pager would be helpful. And my next comment is the pest control. I'm very pleased to hear your comments there. How is it going with the staff that help the tenants move their items around so that you can do the pest treatment? How is that working at the 4 frontline maintenance positions that you mentioned here in the chart? How is that going? Is it proving to be helpful? Is it adequate just to have the 4 staff? Because I always know that there's a problem for seniors to get your place prepared and ready for the pest management treatment. It's very, very hard. So how is that working out? Is it too soon to comment, or are they so inundated with work that they're overwhelmed?
Through the chair, Brenda, we haven't recruited those positions yet. They haven't been filled full time. In the meantime, we've been supplementing with a vendor who's been assisting us with preparing the units, and the environmental health team have access to that vendor as well as to bring them in based on certain criteria. We also partner with Toronto Public Health, who through their bedbug team will provide decluttering as well as preparation for units and tenants to assist them.
So is it expected we will be hiring those 4 people, or have those positions been frozen?
No, it's expected that we hire them, and they're currently under recruitment. Okay,
terrific, thank you. And the last one was community safety. The same thing, just a chart or explanation of what a self-initiated control is. Just a little chart, so because this is all institutional language, so it'd be helpful if you could, a one pager would suffice, but just an explanation of what what these things mean and the significance.
Absolutely, and we'll include that in the next report.
Okay. And lastly, I'm having problems hearing. Is anyone else having technical issues too?
No. Yes, there's a lot of background.
Okay. Okay, so it's not just me. Thank you then.
Okay, thanks, Brenda. Are there any other questions?
Right here, Fareed.
Okay, Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you, Fareed. Brad, thank you so much for your report. So back to the arrears. If I'm reading it correctly, there's a $1.7 million in arrears currently, and then there was an increase of $53,000 from September. I'm just wondering, look, given the cost of everything's gone up significantly, it's everyone's paying more for everything. So people in low income and subsidized seniors particularly are getting hit hard. This number, can you tell me how much has it grown since before COVID, or do you have that that number, given that the Seniors Corporation only recently incorporated about 1.5 or 2 years ago, right?
Through the chair, correct.
Yeah.
Since pre-COVID levels, the arrears, the outstanding balances remained relatively flat throughout the process. You're correct, and it is a strain on the seniors that reside within our communities. Their rent guarantee income is based on a percentage of their gross rent. It doesn't take into account things like prescriptions and groceries and the cost that they've had inflate there.
Yeah.
I would say that up until, as I mentioned, arrears are very cyclical in nature. Generally, you see a spike in December and January and then work to reduce it the rest of the year. We were making excellent progress. We actually had decreases. When you compare our rent roll versus our rent collected for November and December, we actually collected $240,000 more than we charged in rent for those 2 months. And then for the month of January, we shortfell $76,000 from what we collected. But as I mentioned earlier, that's to be expected in the industry as far as time of year.
Sorry, Brad, did you just say we collected more than what we should be collecting, to the tune of about 240,000?
What we collected was our rent that we charged tenants, plus some of the outstanding balances. A lot of the outstanding amounts are held in what are called local repayment agreements. Somebody falls into arrears, the staff work with them to negotiate a deal whereby they pay their rent plus an extra $50 or $100 a month. We collected our rent, plus we collected $238,000 in past rental payments that were due to the corporation.
Yeah, so just a concern, because moving forward, and given that we had such a spike, an increase of 53,000, what do you anticipate? Are we having some discussions with some seniors to find out what some of their challenges are, to see how we can help them? I would suspect that, predicting forward in the next couple of months, we could continue to have increases upwards of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in arrears. I hope not, but given where we're at today, what do you anticipate, Brad? And
a large portion of why the arrears remained so flat was due to the freeze that was placed upon the landlord-tenant board. I would say that we have increased the amount of arrears that we have been able to get in front of the adjudicators. So we enter into what's known as a mediated agreement with the landlord-tenant board and our tenants on outstanding balances. We've been able to increase that amount month after month as the landlord-tenant board continues to catch up to the backlog from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And once in those mediated agreements, generally our rent payments those payments continue to come in and reduce.
Okay. And again, it's not just the rent, it's also parking arrears.
Correct.
They pay a separate fee for parking.
Correct.
Right. Okay, thank you, Brad. Thank you.
You're on mute for Reid.
Yes, sorry about that. So thanks, Brad, and thanks, Councillor. We're going to move on to item number 10B, but before we get Brad to do an update, we have a deputant. Maureen Clohessy is with us, so I'll invite Maureen to provide her deputation to the board for 5 minutes. And I also want to take this opportunity to welcome all of the public members who are joining us online. I was remiss in my opening remarks not to welcome the public. So if you're joining us through our live stream, welcome to the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation Board. It's always good to have you with us. And I'll ask Maureen to proceed with her deputation.
Maureen Clohessy is on the line.
Good morning, board members, staff, and thank you for sharing a bit of your time with me this morning. And a special welcome to Paul Raftis. My comments are related to the ISM evaluation report. And just a quick background for our newer directors. I'm an appointed member of STAC, which is the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee, which was formed based on a City Council decision. And our purpose, basically as written, is to directly access, inform, and influence services and programs. So the ISM report. I just want to start by saying that it was an absolute pleasure to work with the SSLTC team on this, Joseph, Jessica, and Andrea, and on the project, and I think they did an excellent job. At its completion, we were assured and reassured that after the board's acceptance of the report today, STAC would be directly involved in working with the TSHC management team to determine which recommendations should be prioritized and how to best implement them. Now, I raise this because it was my understanding that when the TSHC policies were accepted as interim by the board, STAC would be the first group to directly assist management in rewriting them to fit the new corporation, starting with the use of space policy, but it hasn't happened that way. It was also my understanding that when the Health Commons report was accepted by the board, that STAC would be working with management to determine the priorities and implementation plans for those recommendations. But that hasn't happened yet either. So I bring this up with the ISM recommendations so that you're aware we are looking forward to working with the management team on the ISM recommendations in the report and counting on that SSLTC reassurance that it will happen. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'm here.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Don't see any hand up, and I just would like to seek your indulgence since both Maureen and Bill are speaking on the ISM evaluation item. I'd like to switch that and deal with that before we go to grant and the quality improvement project. So, if there are no questions for Maureen, Bill, I invite you to make your deputation.
If you can just give us a moment, we need to get Bill on the line.
Thanks.
Bill Lohman is on the line.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Sir. Thank you. You may proceed, Bill.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hunter, and board members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Bill Lohman, and today is the first board meeting of 2023. And it's certainly nice to see everyone again. And I'd like to have welcome Mr. John Wilson and Mr. Paul Raftis to the team here. And let's make this year one of positive collaboration. I'm here to speak on item 10C, the integrated service model. 2 years ago, and first I would like to I want to mirror what Maureen said about working with Joseph and Jessica. That was an absolute pleasure. But 2 years ago, the STAC was created to help design and deliver the integrated service model, and with words like to influence and help shape, give input and influence to decision making, and provide a senior lens. We all know that did not happen. And the first year glossed over relevant policy and protocols and claimed that they were actually reviewed. This is about the accountability. To me, this is about the accountability framework. And there's no accountability to tenants. And what it's created is a siloed approach that seems to be allowing for differential treatment of tenants and communities with no transparency or effective oversight. And for tenants, it's in an environment that is determined by and reflective of the attitudes and behavior of an SSC. The tenants in community, tenants in our communities are not the ones that should be making adjustments and taking action to try to collaborate with staff, only to be hamstrung and saddled with inconvenience and disregard from failures to be responsive and to act. And we find that issues that are raised to one staff and receiving a response from a different person of the team is missing in transparency, and it really doesn't promote trust. And there seems to be a nonchalance to, and no repercussions when staff don't keep their word. And it's because there's zero accountability to tenants in the model. The integrated service model is based on stakeholder input on their roles and responsibilities of these key partners to address medical supports for aging, vulnerable seniors and tenancy issues, while they've outsourced external agencies to provide tenant engagement activities for seniors. There's a clear conflict between the integrated service model and the expectations in the tenant engagement system. One is about trying to create tenant voices, being able to influence decision-making and steer community programming and revitalize well-being, whereas the role of the SSC is framed as an autocratic authority in an opaque, centralized model with no accountability to tenants or the community. The vast majority of seniors who don't need special supports are not recognized or being considered in the framework. And so how can their needs be met when they aren't recognized? And I believe the accountability framework and the shareholders' direction that supports it need to be refined and aligned to respectfully include a senior's lens and address the lack of accountability to tenants that's absent in the original framework. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks again, Paul. Sorry, Bill. Appreciate your comments and insight. Any question for the deputy? Okay, go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anyone that, before we get into the content of the ISM, there does seem to be some questions about the next steps forward in terms of addressing both the issues that Maureen and both our deputies are raising. So I'm wondering if Bill is raising as well. I'm wondering if there's any comments in terms of those steps before we get into it's a very dense report, and I did actually hear many positive comments about the work that's being done, but it does sound like there's some process questions.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. I was going to ask for that commentary after we had the any question for the deputy. So good, thanks, good reminder. Any other questions for the comment? Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Through the chair, I was just going to respond to Linda's question. So, am I good to reply?
Yeah, go ahead. We're getting some really bad feedback. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, if everybody just goes on mute, perhaps that will help. So I would just like to say from Toronto Seniors and the staff that I have been working with, we have tried to be very intentional around involving the tenants and STAC in this work. And so at STAC meetings, the integrated service model was taken to that group. Also, as it relates to our interim strategic directions, where we reviewed that, with our tenants, with STAC, there is very clear, and there will be clear, where you look at those directions, those goals, what will be the action plan, some of the KPIs that are shared, which you'll see today. You can see how we have integrated both the integrated service model, the Health Commons report, and the STAC report in terms of the countless and numerous recommendations that have been made, and how moving forward within our corporate strategy we will address those recommendations. We're also looking to prepare a grid that will show how our directions are meeting the recommendations of the ISM evaluation, the Health Commons report, and the stack report. And that's work in progress, for the staff. And that is, as we have, that will be shared with the tenants. So I just want to share from our perspective how we have really tried to work to get that in engagement and reflection with the tenants, as I know that the reports did as well, incorporating that tenant perspective.
That's great. Thanks, Tom. Okay, if there are no other questions or comment, sorry, Brenda, go ahead. You're on mute, Brenda.
Have we finalized, we were talking about the process of tenant engagement and what models we were going to use. Linda, I see you shaking your head. So it sounds to me like this is a work in progress. Is that, because until we have some sense of how we're going to appoint tenant representatives, how they're going to be elected, or whatever option we choose, it sounds to me like we have to kind of firm up that discussion and that process of how we engage and are accountable and transparent in our tenant engagement process. So it was a question, and Linda, if you could answer or give me some insights, I'd appreciate it. I see you nodding your head, so.
I don't believe the model is actually confirmed. I think that's actually where we have the RFP that's out right now.
Yes, that's yes.
And I do agree with you, Brenda, that there is actually some undertones of this issue with all of the really good work that is being presented.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that, Grant?
Just briefly through the chair. So yes, that is the RFP that Linda referenced in her update from the QTE. And we are just onboarding a vendor now to help us with this work. So there is not a tenant engagement model yet that's been defined. And there will be a process undertaken to engage tenants about some of those considerations and what kind of a model we want as an organization with our tenants. So we haven't yet defined it. We're just onboarding the vendor to help us with that work now, and that will commence over the next few months to go through. So we will be reporting back on that work, and we will also take into consideration all of the good work that was done, not only on the ISM evaluation, but some of those other reports as well, because tenant engagement is a broadly defined term that we've heard about in different forums, and we will look at it from that lens as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Grant.
The vendors being hired to facilitate that process and discussion. Will they also be laying out options and then bringing that to us? Okay, thank you then.
Yes, they will. Yes.
All right, thanks. If there are no other questions, we'll move over to the presentation. I know Jennifer and Andrea are here. I understand, Andrea, you'll be presenting. So Jennifer, over to you and Andrea.
Thanks very much, Fareed. Yes, Andrea, I'm going to hand the microphone over to you. Appreciate that.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. We are delighted to be here. I'm Andrea Austin. I'm the Director of Senior Services and Community Programs at the City of Toronto's Senior Services and Long-Term Care Division. And I just want to introduce a few of us from our team. John Wilson, give us a wave, John. John Wilson is the new Manager of Senior Services, and he comes to us from the Housing Secretariat. He's been with us almost a month now. And Joseph Burley and Jessica Lee, there she is, and they have really been the leads in terms of this evaluation. This report has been a team effort with over 200 tenants, Stack, the board directors, Tom and his team, very much a co-creation. So we are delighted to be here, as I said, to submit this final evaluation report on the integrated service model. And this evaluation began in April of 2022 with the release of the 2021 ISM program report from the Toronto Seniors Housing staff. And so building on that report, the senior services team set out to understand how well the model was rolled out to identify whether tenants and staff were better off as a result. So we drew on previous reports, we collaborated with senior tenants and staff, and we examined the KPIs to get a kind of a full picture to understand what the ISM implementation was looking like. So through this work, our team generated 12 recommendations and over 50 practical ideas to improve the integrated service model in the short, medium, and long term. These are concrete, actionable recommendations that are drawn from the experiences and truly thoughtful input of over 200 senior tenants that were engaged throughout the process of developing this evaluation, and this report would not have been possible without them. So specifically, I would like to acknowledge the collaboration of STAC and the tenant directors here today who brought that vital tenant perspective to every stage of the evaluation. Our collaboration with STAC reinforced a key lesson from the Health Commons report, which is that tenants are the experts of their own experience, and they represent an invaluable asset in designing and delivering services that address their needs. So as we work to support Toronto seniors housing to lead and advance these recommendations, the organization's ongoing and meaningful engagement with tenants will be critical. So to that end, the importance of tenant engagement and partnership is embedded in many of our recommendations here before you today. So where possible, we also drew connections between our ideas, our collaborative, collective ideas, and the Toronto Seniors Housing ongoing efforts to redevelop its tenant engagement model. So this evaluation presents opportunities for transformative change across the organization in staffing, policy, health services, social supports, tenant engagement, and data management. So with this report, as well as the Health Commons report, Toronto Seniors Housing can really lead strategic planning efforts, service coordination, and performance monitoring that more meaningfully respond to and address tenant needs. So in closing, I just want to say, building on the success of the Health Commons and the organization's 2021 work and report and this ISM evaluation report, that we are confident that the organization will successfully lead the implementation of the integrated service model in true collaboration with tenants, with staff, with the city, and with community partners. So we look forward to walking this path with you and to fostering vibrant, active, and inclusive tenant communities. Thanks very much. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Jennifer. Are there any questions? Okay, Linda.
Yeah, thanks so much for all this work. It's really, like, the reports are fabulous. I do have a question, and it's actually more for Tom and your team. I've had a chance to take a look at this report now at 2 meetings, and there's so much in it that my only concern, and I wonder, Tom, in terms of your team, is actually the execution. Is that there's, and even the level of recommendations, like there's a lot of recommendations, and I am a little worried about actually that the execution, and I wonder, Tom, how your team is feeling, because there's a lot around local development, there's a lot of nuggets around partner engagement with partners that are not going to be easy to just change the whole healthcare system. And so I wonder, Tom, if you can make some comments in terms of the next phase of you've got this and execution.
Yeah, so yeah, through the chair to Linda. Yeah, I would agree that the team is, I guess, kind of concern maybe is a bit strong, but understanding that there are a lot of recommendations, and I think we have enough work for 5 years, right, when I see what's being proposed. But to me, I think there's 2 or 3 elements that we really have to keep our eyes on. And I addressed one, and that is with the interim strategic directions and our action plan, we will see what elements of that action plan capture the recommendations in these 3 reports, right? So that will be presented to our tenant representatives, to STAC, to the board committee. So you will see the alignment, or that initial alignment around what we understand we can execute within the interim strategic directions, and the timing of that. So that will be key. And there we will not be able to address all of those recommendations within the next 18 months. So it will be, to the deputant's point, comments, it will be important to get feedback from, as I said, from tenants, from the board, from staff, on what we can achieve, what are those priorities. I think the second part to this is we'll have, we've been doing a lot of work on our key performance indicators on our data. I believe that we have to be more of a data-driven outcome organization. And to the extent that we will be reporting more on our outcomes, our community will be able to see, is Toronto Seniors Housing achieving, right, the outcomes that it wanted, as it has laid out around our partnerships, around aspects of social activities in our buildings, what we're providing to the tenants. So we will have a very robust plan, and I believe that we will need more resources if we are going to be successful in the full implementation. But that will have to be tempered with the constraints that we have, and that's what we're going to have to work with. I've said it before, we have just kind of hired all of the staff that have been identified through the integrated service model. And we haven't even had that fully operational, for a year. So, we're at this place where we are, implementation, and now there's a performance element. And so there are a lot of moving pieces, but I too, Linda, there is a concern, and we will have to really watch kind of carefully and be very, as I said, intentional and monitoring the resources that we are using to acquire, to address this plan, and are we achieving the outcomes that we set out, that we are measuring. Does that help?
It does. I think maybe like keeping us informed of any risks that you see, and yeah, I think actually that's the key part is actually the proof is in the execution, and so maybe keeping us fully informed of any risks of where we can't actually proceed, and actually really taking into account the message that we're getting from our tenant leaders that have been so engaged in this.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brenda.
Following on some of Linda and Tom's point, this issue of needing to assign either a person or persons for tracking and follow through and implementation purposes. Accountability is helped when you have someone you can actually point to who's responsible for ensuring things of this nature get done. So I just like to raise that as a point of concern of mine, because this is a very rich. I mean, it's exhausting even realizing the amount of work that, I mean, I can tell that went into it, and I'm not even part of it. So I just want to make sure that whether it's an assigned person, an assigned manager, I'll leave that up to you. But I think there should be some way of tracking and accountability, and I certainly share your belief in data-driven decision-making, Tom. And my second point is the need for collaboration and consultation and partnership. These are specific skills, and I want us to keep in mind that not everyone has these skills inherently built into their personal toolbox. So I want to make sure that we either have training and professional development opportunities for staff, frontline as much as manager, in how do you engage with people? How do you consult? How do you partner with outside community agencies? I mean, that's a whole nother piece of the puzzle and part of the solution that we haven't really dealt with in depth. But there is a skill set involved with that. And I worked in Peel Region for many years, and which was very different than Toronto because we were under-resourced. So people had to work together. We had to collaborate. We had to have interagency teams. And the contrast between my professional experience in Toronto and Peel was quite pronounced. So I'd just like to highlight that for HR folks and what's that, Dave? Is it Dave? Yeah, Dave's here. That whether there's a need to consult with people, do you need any training on this? Do you need a workshop on this? Let's ensure that people have the skill set to effectively implement engagement, partnership, and collaboration. It doesn't come easy. You know, not everyone has the skill to be able to be open and collaborative, and it's a skill. It's a skill.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, I just want to echo some of the sentiments expressed by the members. Andrea and Jennifer, thanks. Great report, and look forward to your continued engagement and continued collaboration. And we'll find a way of ensuring that we continue to track and find a way of getting through some of the accountability requirements that are embedded in the report. So thank you very much. All right, with that, we'll move to item number 10B, which is the quality improvement project. And I'll pass you on to Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Fareed. So through the chair, I'll provide just a brief update on where we are with the quality improvement projects. So just to refresh, we have 3 quality improvement projects. The first one is on pest management. The second one is on safety and security. And the third one is on staff and tenant relations. And when we last updated at the board, we were in the initial stages of launching those 3 projects back in the latter part of 2022. I can update the board, and it's in the report that we have now launched all 3 of those, and Linda mentioned it at the outset briefly, launched all 3 of the quality improvement projects, and we're quite significantly into the process. So the way that the projects have been structured, we have a 5-meeting process where we work them through essentially in a team structure where we have a joint working team between staff and tenants. I'll flag that we have 29 tenants that have signed up and are participating in the 3 quality improvement projects, and roughly 20 staff as well. So this is, a real truly collaborative opportunity, and we are working and learning through this process. So we have held 3 meetings of the pest management team. So essentially going through the sort of the onboarding, the initial discussion of ideas, and now actually prioritizing ideas around how we can find improvements. And that included some analysis of more in-depth data beyond what you saw on the operational dashboard, for example. And that has helped with some of the ideas that have already been put into process. And as noted in the report, we're not necessarily waiting for the outcome of each of these quality improvement projects to take action. On the safety and security, we're also into the 3rd meeting now. So we've been discussing ideas about how we can move that forward in this collaborative form. And on the staff and tenant relations, we're into the 2nd meeting now. The process will take us through the next couple of months, so through April and May, to conclude all of the meetings. And I'll let this table know that we've been very flexible in this structure, in that we've actually scheduled extra meetings to go through all of the ideas. So notwithstanding the discussions just happened about recommendations, there are another set of recommendations coming out of each of these quality improvement projects. And I can let this table know that over 30 ideas have been generated so far in both the pest and safety and security that are going through a prioritization discussion with these teams right now. And so there's quite a bit of work and discussion. We've held extra meetings to try to get through it, and we're really excited about what's coming, but we do have to assess those ideas and do the same kind of level set as to how they're going to layer into all the other work as well. But they are priorities, as we know. So I just wanted to provide a brief update on where we are. We'll report back to the future QTE and board on this, and we're very excited about the progress we've made to date.
Thank you, Grant. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. So that was an information item. We don't need to have a motion or a resolution. We'll move to item number 11. And this is the appointment as member and chair of the Corporate Governance and Human Resources Committee. And this is my distinct pleasure to ask someone to move the following motion. Be it resolved that Councillor Crisanti is hereby appointed as a member and chair of the Corporate Governance and Human Resources Committee. May I have a motion in that respect? Sorry, mover.
To move, it's Linda. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Linda. And a seconder? Okay, thanks, Jim. So all in favor? That has been approved. Councillor Crisanti, welcome to your new role.
Fareed, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to my first meeting as chair.
It's not often we get to delegate to elected officials. This is one of those few moments. So, all righty, thanks, and welcome again, and thanks for your engagement and participation. All right, so we'll move to item number 12, which is the Corporate Governance and Human Resources Committee report. I chaired that report the last time we met on January the 17th. I'll provide a brief overview of the items we discuss, and then I'll have Dave perhaps do a deeper dive on the employee engagement and equity, diversity, and inclusion survey. So in the meeting, we had a presentation from the People and Culture team, provided an update on the plans to conduct an employee engagement and equity, diversity, and inclusion survey in Q3 of 2013. This would be to determine employee satisfaction and to gather, of course, greater demographic data to inform our EDI initiatives on a going forward basis. There was also a staff report, which was included in today's board package, which Dave will speak to. The committee also reviewed an annual work plan. Linda made reference to this. This is the committee going through their work plan as we get ready for this new year. We also discussed future agenda items and the upcoming meeting and information that's required to support those deliberations. And of course, we'll provide Councillor Crisanti with the appropriate briefing to get him up to speed prior to our next meeting. There are some additional items that this committee discussed that will be profiled in the in-camera session. So with that, Dave, do you want to provide an update on the employee engagement survey?
Certainly. Thank you, Fareed, and through the chair. Just wanted to update the board on our plan to conduct the employee engagement and the equity, diversity, and inclusion survey for 2023. One of our early priorities has been to focus on the development of an organizational culture that will enable Toronto Seniors Housing to fulfill its mandate. And this will be achieved by engaging, empowering, and supporting our staff. Some of our early initiatives included and currently include town halls, staff listening tours, learning and development plans and training, staff communications, the introduction of policies such as the right to disconnect from work and the hybrid work model, and some intensive recruiting planning to ensure that the key vacancies are filled in a timely fashion with qualified candidates that are representative of our communities. And finally, last but not least, forging constructive relationships with our labor partners. Some of our future initiatives will include improved orientation, onboarding programs, talent management and succession planning strategies, formal and informal employee recognition programs, health and wellness focus, and workforce equity, diversity, and inclusion strategies to eliminate discrimination and barriers. Toronto Community Housing conducted an employee engagement survey in 2021, and our staff participated in that survey prior to the transfer last year. The primary engagement drivers for our staff were innovation, senior leadership, diversity and inclusion, and organizational vision. After the survey results were tabulated, again, this was prior to June 1st, all the divisions, including the seniors housing unit, were asked to engage their staff and identify priorities and develop work plans. The priorities for the former seniors housing division included create opportunities to recognize staff in delivering the organization's mandate, creating mechanisms for staff development opportunities and work balance, and to develop processes for staff ideas to be heard and implemented. Many of our current and planned initiatives are addressing these priorities that came over to the new corporation on June the 1st. An inaugural survey will help to assess progress and establish important baseline data for future planning. The same holds true for equity, diversity, and strategy. Toronto Community Housing conducted a survey to gather baseline data early in 2022 prior to the transfer. A fresh survey would provide baseline data that we require and also identify priorities for our staff that we can work on. Our plan is to launch the surveys concurrently in the third quarter of this year after the strategic directions are released, and the results will help to inform our action plans for 2024. Our next steps are to prepare a request for proposal to select a vendor to help us with this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions? Okay, Brenda, go ahead.
Dave, you mentioned hiring a vendor to help with these initiatives. There are no internal resources to do this. We have to yet again go to an external consultant.
Through the chair, Brenda, the good question. The vendor will actually a vendor who has expertise in surveys and has a fairly sophisticated database, and they'll help us to structure the survey questions and also actually and tabulate the responses for us, and then we will be able to act on those through work plans. So it's just with the organization of the survey, and it's also a best practice because there's personal information, and using a third-party vendor provides an objective and a safe place for employees to express their views about the organization, and also about the equity, diversity, and inclusion questions that would be asking them to complete.
Will we see or have some information provided to the board as to what the nature of that questionnaire is? I mean, I don't want to get into the granular details here, but I just like to know what are the questions being asked, because, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't ask the right questions, then you're not going to get the right responses or answers that can help you develop any practices or policies. So will we be able to see maybe a copy of that questionnaire or some outline of what will be included?
Certainly, we'll keep our Governance and Human Resources Committee and the board apprised of our progress, and provide the framework of the survey and the questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I appreciate and certainly acknowledge Brenda's concerns about going outside, but I think in this case, to help with the anonymity and also help with maximize participation, a third-party vendor is often a bit more helpful than getting people to participate and providing that anonymity that sometimes staff need, especially when you're dealing with some of the critical DEI issues. So we look forward to getting an update at the HR committee as well as the board, Dave, and thanks for proceeding with this item. Alrighty, we'll move to item number 13, which is the report from the Audit and Finance and Risk Committee. I'll hand you over to our Vice Chair and Chair of the committee, Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Audit, Finance and Risk Committee met on 26 January and reviewed the following. This committee's proposed work plan for 2023, the consolidated budget of our corporation along with the TSHC that was submitted to the city, the updates to two policies, that's accounts payable policy and delegation of authority policy, and also the preliminary financial results for the calendar year 2022 for our corporation. Vince will be presenting to the board more these items which I referred to with updated numbers. Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the board. I just would like to present to you the 2023 consolidated budget. As you've been made aware, we've been advised from the city to present a consolidated budget with TSHC, and through the process since November, we have been involved, the board members along with the committees as well, on the 2023 budget. And on December 12th of 2022, the budget was approved through the board. And attached, you will see the consolidated budget along with the budget notes that has been submitted to the city. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, and certainly we will discuss a bit more on the TSHC budget on in-camera session. But just from a high level and a highlight, the revenue-wise total 696 million. And included in this case here, expenses of also 696 million, a balanced budget overall. And included with that as well, there is some reserve that had to be dipped in to be able to make the shortfall come into place, just certainly due to the fact that it was a very challenging budget overall in 2023. And so there are some risks and some challenges, of course, that the organizations, both TSHC and TSHC, is facing in 2023. But we're glad to say that it is a balanced budget overall. And in some respect as well, the budget was passed on February the 15th through council. So you will see there's two attachments on that there. So that's item number 13A of the board report. If there's no further questions, I will move on to number 13B, item on the docket, which is the COVID-19 costs and recoveries. As outlined in the documentation, there is a $3 million shortfall in 2020.
Pardon to interrupt, and I see that Brenda did put her hand up. My apologies. Brenda put her hand up.
Sorry.
Yes, it was some question about 2 points. One, we're showing everything consolidated here with Toronto Community Housing and Toronto Seniors. Okay. Going forward, is that the expectation that we'll always have this combined budget submitted to the city?
Yeah, in 2023 budget that through a transition year, it was expected that it was going to go through as a consolidated.
Right.
But our goal and the goal from, I guess, the city as well is to have a separate budget. Just due to the timing and also just due to the transition, it was very difficult to get that through in 2023. Yeah. But definitely the goal is to get that as a separate budget. Hopefully starting in 2023, which was 2024 budget, and with which I will talk a little bit more on the financial model as well later on, that touch based on some of that component. But we're hoping that there will be an undertaking coming soon that we'll discuss about, in terms of the financial model overall, and hopefully that would also pave way for a bit more of a, separate approach on that basis. But as far as we know right now, we are doing the consolidated for now, but we're hoping and we're working towards a separate budget in 2024.
Thank you, because it's very hard to track and have transparency and accountability when you got combined figures. This has been difficult for me to figure out our specific role and component here. So whether we proceed with that or not, I'd just like us to make sure that when you communicate with us, that we see the specific components for Toronto Seniors Housing. I don't want to get it. It's hard to track and be accountable when you can't separate out. My second question was on capital improvements and changes. We had asked for a list from Toronto Community Housing about whatever capital projects were on the horizon for Toronto Seniors Housing. I don't know, did we get that list? I saw on the action list it was completed, but did we get it as a board member? Because I'd like to know what the state of repair is of our seniors buildings.
Tom, you have a response? Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, through the chair to Brenda. Yes, we do have that information, Brenda, and we can certainly share that. We affirmed that we have that capital list and the priorities. So right now it's complicated, but we can provide a kind of consolidated information relating to the capital projects to the board. We'll follow up on that specifically.
Okay, because I just want to, for risk purposes and due diligence, I need to know as a board member are there any, I don't want any Swansea Muse issues here. So I'd like to, as a knowledgeable decision maker and a board member, what is the state of good repair or not good repair in our buildings? So we can keep track of that. And related to that is, I'm still not clear, it may be my fault of interpretation. What is our capital budget? I know we are deferring to Toronto Community Housing, but I'd like to get a handle on our specific needs as the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, where we are with capital projects going forward. Was there any cutbacks in our capital budget because of this recent budgeting process? Because given the age of some of our buildings, and I just want to be careful that we're apprised as board members if there's any hot spots or contentious issues or buildings with elevators. And if we have elevators out for a month in some of our buildings, we're screwed because those seniors can't climb stairs. So I just, for purposes, I don't need to know specific details, but I like to know as a board member. And I was very concerned that we dipped 13 million into the capital budget in order to have a balanced budget. I'm very concerned when you borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, borrowing from capital for operating. Those are unhealthy trends, and I want to make sure we don't end up hitting the wall at some point and a massive problem with a building or a series of buildings and no resources to do it.
Yeah, through the chair to Brenda. So I think along with the projects, right? Really a condensed view of the projects.
Yeah.
We can provide you that detail just so you have it. But it was roughly 26 million in capital projects, approximately 850 jobs. But I think we will just confirm that and put it in a small information report for the board members.
I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you. Just want to keep on top of things and do due diligence.
Thanks, Tom. Vince?
Yep, through the chair and to respond to Brenda, in terms of the $13 million reserve that had to be dipped into, certainly there were some component dealing with the capital, but some of it also to do with other reserve, if you want to call it that way, but not necessarily all 13 million was dipped into there to fund that. But certainly it was a very challenging budget overall, and let's say the least. But the team will provide you with the more updated state of good repairs in terms of some of those initiatives being done for 2023 capital budget as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Any other comment on the consolidated budget information, please?
I just have one question for Vince, and if I could, Fareed. So,
go ahead, Councillor.
So, Vince, I'm sorry, I don't recall. We just went through a budget last week at the city, and there's an allocated amount for Toronto Community Housing, and I don't recall what that number is, but there's definitely an allocated amount. Do you? Just to remind all members here, do you know what that number is, and how that is split up between Toronto Community Housing and Seniors Corporation?
Are you talking about the subsidy from the city or more?
Yes.
Yes. So from the city, more specifically for the 2023 budget, and we'll get into that a little bit more detail. But there's about $37 million worth of subsidy that Toronto Senior Housing received.
Additional money.
Not additional money, but these are the total money. Additional money was only about $2.9 million additional money. But certainly we can discuss a little bit more in the in-camera session on that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Vince. Okay, we'll move to the second item on the Audit and Finance and Risk Committee report, which is the COVID-19 cost.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the board. We presented the 2020 the COVID-19 cost recovery, as was raised earlier in terms of the questions in terms of how the funds can be recovered. We've outlined essentially the the documentations in terms of how the city process goes through to recover the funds, and listed in there is the process that we've also referenced some of the information from the city of Toronto as well. So through through the funding piece of it, Toronto Senior Housing, we cannot raise, and we don't have any mechanism to raise funds, and through the city that talks to both the provincial and federal government. They're the one that actually support us and recover the COVID-19 costs. And certainly it is a risk and it is a challenging, and certainly every year we wait until the 12th hour to get the funding through these two provincial and federal government to come in and support the shortfall. Through the executive chair, Steve Conforti, we provided monthly and also quarterly reporting of the COVID-19 costs. I would like to say that in 2023, we have started to sort of reduce, and as the COVID-19 have also subsided as well, we have stopped some of the extra cleaning and some of the costs starting in January at this point, and certainly we will continue to monitor the situation. But the report outlines all of those information on the report. And are there any questions to that report 13B? Okay, if there's no further question, I will proceed with the...
No, we have Brenda. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Vince. Go ahead, Brenda.
Okay.
Is the COVID cost mostly cleaning related? Like, are we buying equipment, or what do we call the COVID cost?
The COVID costs consisted of about 4 or 5 main items. The majority of it is on the cleaning, but also there's also supplies as well. But there's also costs that would have, in this case here, would have been on things relating to arrears, for example, due to COVID. So there's a mixture of other costs as well. But in total, for 2023, there's about $10.8 million of COVID costs as a consolidated figure.
And that includes staffing?
Correct. Correct. Cleaning. Correct. Yes.
And
cleaning, extra cleaning. So these are stuff like weekend cleaning or nightly or extra cleaning to basically dissolve of any of the bacteria and viruses in the surrounding area.
And is that accepted as a definition of what a COVID cost is, and in terms of the funders? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is that not just considered operational cost? When does it become a COVID cost? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not questioning, it's just I'm trying to figure out, what are we realistically going to get that 10.8 million compensated for? If they disagree with what we call a COVID related cost.
We have been getting that in the last 2+ years at this point.
Okay.
And so there's never been a dispute. And certainly from these are added additional cleaning on top of what we don't normally do to dissolve that. But we have been getting that recovery over the last 2 years, and we're hoping to continue to have that as well in 2023's budget as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. And this is obviously a negotiation as well, and we need to put our best foot forward and try and recover as much as we can all of the related costs. Okay. All right. Anything else on that particular item, which is the item number 11B? Sorry, 13B. If not, we'll move on to 13C, which is the 2022 preliminary financial result. Again, this is an information item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the board. In the AFRC meeting on January 26, we presented the 2022 preliminary financial result, and essentially, currently right now, we're working through it. We're finalizing the 2022 and with the audit at this point. But just from a high-level perspective, you will see that it is expected that Toronto Senior Housing is going to come in with a surplus overall, and that surplus is really on the interest component, interest income of $162,000, interest earned through the bank But also more importantly as well, there will be some surplus overall that will be going back to TSHC in the tune of close to $1 million overall. And that surplus is as a result of essentially excess of extra funds that we have not been used in the current year as predicted in our existing budget. And so we've been very, very cognizant of that, but also on top of it, due to the delay of the corporate positions. So there was a significant in terms of a surplus going back, and that was expected overall. In terms of the details of it, I'm not going to go through too much, but there are some few remaining items that we're still finalizing at this point, which is the component on how to deal with the TSHC surplus, and also just reviewing on some of the account reconciliation piece of it, and remaining year-end entries, and also the post-retirement liability true-up as well. So those are the sort of remaining items that's going to have an effect, and we will certainly be bringing up in the next AFRC meeting in March to present the final result there. But just also from a very other high-level perspective, cash is at $5.9 million at the end of December, and we've also got some prepaid expenses in there as well in the $620,000, along with accounts payable, long-term liabilities that we had to, and also some deferred money from the city grant, which we'll be bringing forward in 2023, and we'll be using that funds there in that period there. I'm not looking at my screen, but are there any questions relating to the 2022 preliminary results? Okay. If not, I will proceed with the item 13D on the docket, which is the financial update. In just from a high-level perspective, there are 5 items on the financial update. One of them is on the HST determined municipality status. So we have been communicated, we have been including the city and our consultant on this, and we recently received the report back. And so we're reviewing that report and going to be providing with a response back to the CRA. There were some questions on some of the technicality in terms of a determined municipality, and we've addressed it. Both us and also our consultant and lawyer from the city have reviewed the document, and so we will be providing with a response in the coming weeks to the CRA. Along with that as well, we've also have an update on terms of the letter of guarantee. We have submitted a letter of guarantee to the city, requesting that they will be on the hook for any of the items relating to the bank, to the line of credit through the bank. And so right now the city is reviewing that document and waiting for that response. We also are finalizing on the vacation and leave time, which we have included now on the financial report. So there's about $1.3 million of settlement that we were expecting to get from the Toronto Community Housing, which right now we're still working out the details of how that is being transferred. And also on top of it, the more important one, of course, is on the financial model, which I touched a bit, and through the motion on the TSHC recent board meeting, there was a motion to do a financial analysis review. And so over the last probably a number of weeks now, we've been finalizing the scope and the documentation, going out to the consultants who help review and understand this model a bit more, for both the involvement from the city, Toronto Community Housing, and also Toronto Seniors Housing as well. And then on top of it, we will have the Q4 reconciliation ready in the coming weeks as well. So those are all the items on the more or less a summary in the item 13D on the financial update there.
Thanks, Vince. Are there any questions for Vince on that particular item? Okay. I don't see any. Just before we get to the accounts payable policy and the delegation policy, I just want to sort of thank you and the team and Tom and the entire leadership team, and also Lawrence, for the work that you folks have done on the budget. I mean, this has been a very, very difficult budget. Lots of challenges in terms of coming up with the budget that you finally did, and lots of give and take. And I certainly appreciate all of you kind of putting your shoulders to the wheel and doing whatever it takes to get the budget done. It's not, we always, in the interest of serving our seniors, would have liked to see more money allocated to TSHC and other entities across the city, but we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have that fiscal leverage and that fiscal integrity. So I just want to say thank you for all the heavy lifting that Tom, you and your team and Vince have done over the last several months, and also to thank the city for their efforts in working with us to find something that is truly collaborative budget. And we're going to continue to find ways of ensuring that we continue to deliver the services that we are required to deliver as we get ready for 2023 and beyond. So the accounts payable policy and the delegation authority policies were reviewed both at the finance and audit committee and were included in the package. Before Vince, I don't know if there's anything you want to quickly speak to before we get a motion to adopt these policies, or if there are questions from the committee members. Can you folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I assume silent is consent. No one has any question. There were a couple of issues that arose from the Finance and Audit Committee regarding the parity between what we were proposing and the Toronto Community Housing Corporation, and that has been resolved. So I don't think there are any questions. If that's the case, then can I get a motion? Be it resolved that Board of Directors approve the accounts payable policy and approve the revised delegation of authority policy. May I have a mover? Okay, Lawrence, seconded by Paul. All in favor?
Yeah.
That motion is carried. All righty. That ends the public portion of our agenda. I will now ask for a motion to move the meeting into camera. May I have someone to move the following motion? Be it resolved that the meeting is moved into closed session.
Move.
Moved by Brenda?
Yes.
Seconded by?
Carrie, I'm on the phone.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. All in favor? That motion is carried. We'll now wait for the live recording session to end before we begin our in-camera deliberations.
Live stream has